In a grand gilded hall, a blond man in a dark tunic stands before a blonde woman in a simple white dress. The blond man's thoughts reveal his joy at finally marrying the woman he has always longed for. The woman, Anastasia, looks on with a somber expression, her name hanging in the air. In a sweet memory, a younger version of the man tells a chibi Anastasia that he likes her embarrassing nickname, but she's not having it. He brings her hand to his lips for a gentle kiss, causing her to gasp in surprise. A close-up on her eye reveals pure panic as she wonders how things have come to this. The scene flashes forward to them sharing a passionate kiss, a promise of what's to come in this life. The story introduces Rowan, the strongest knight in the kingdom, who learned what love is when he met the emperor's daughter, Anastasia. And here she is, Princess Anastasia of Lunwar, the object of Rowan's deep and abiding love. But there's a problem. A neighboring prince, Alua, has proposed to Anastasia and threatens war if he's rejected. Looks like someone can't handle rejection. After a fierce battle, a wounded but victorious Rowan finally wins his happiness with Anastasia. A reader reflects on this perfect story of good triumphing over evil, calling it their only comfort from a grueling job. But plot twist, the reader was reborn into that story not as the princess, but as her body double, the imposter Miranda, a tragic character doomed to die. Miranda's backstory is bleak, sold by her parents for a pittance, and mocked daily by nobles for her low status. To escape her fate, she worked tirelessly, building connections and rising through the ranks until she was known as the Villainess. Her plan was simple. During the marriage procession, the Lunwar Knights would ambush the unsuspecting Prince Alua. Rowan had agreed to the plan, but it all went wrong when an angry mob exposed her, crying out that she was a fake princess. Bound and on her knees, Miranda hears the mob's chilling demand, kill her. She frantically wonders what's happening, and why the knights who were supposed to save her haven't arrived. Kneeling before Prince Alua's throne, she learns her fate was sealed from the start. He always knew she would die. Prince Alua mocks her, telling her that no matter how long she waits for Rowan, help will never arrive. Her eyes widen in terror as she silently asks how he could possibly know that. He continues his chilling speech, saying the kingdom she trusted so completely has decided to abandon her. A report confirms her worst fears. Lunwar intends to sign a peace treaty with Strauss, sacrificing her for it. Seeing her struggle, Prince Alua coldly tells her to direct her anger at her own kingdom, not him. In utter despair, Miranda screams Rowan's name, crying out that she devoted 6 long years to serving their kingdom. A bloody slash marks the end of her second life, a tragic and brutal finale. As the real Anastasia and Rowan walk away without a hint of guilt, the narrator laments the painful truth that only the chosen ones are ever loved. She dreams of a different life, one where she is seen, cherished, and treasured for who she is. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit mansion, signaling a new beginning. Reborn as a child once more, she finds herself in a familiar place and wonders, here again? A maid towers over her, harshly questioning her basic etiquette. The brown-haired maid launches into a tirade, calling her a hopeless, low-born noble who will only disgrace the princess. A spark of realization hits the young girl. If it's a tea party with the princess, then today must be that day. She recalls the traumatic memory of the maid, Helena, striking her with a cup just for asking a question during lessons. But this time is different. With newfound determination, she thinks, now I can do it. She confidently asserts that thanks to the hard work in her second life, her manners are now perfect. The memory of betrayal echoes in her mind, the prince's words that her kingdom had abandoned her. The maid, Helena, snaps that at this rate, she'll never be worthy of meeting the princess. Ignoring the maid, the young girl elegantly raises a teacup from the table with perfect poise. Enraged, Helena screams that the cup belongs to the princess and a lowborn commoner shouldn't dare touch it, but the girl just coolly asks, "Oh, really?" With a confident wink, she takes a delicate sip of tea, leaving the maid utterly speechless. Her inner voice rings with defiance. Not a chance, she absolutely refuses to live that life again. Crash! She lets the cup fall and shatter, her expression hardening as she resolves to get revenge on everyone who mocked her. Her face is a mask of cool determination, the plan for her revenge already taking shape. The maid is apoplectic, accusing her of dropping the precious cup on purpose. Helena storms forward, screaming that the cup is more valuable than the girl's life, and berating her for her lack of common sense. The girl's face darkens as a chilling thought crosses her mind. Is a cup truly more valuable than a person's life? She looks up at the maid and calmly asks if her parents failed to teach her basic values, enraging Helena even further. The maid's voice echoes from outside the room, berating the girl for talking back and questioning her motives as a low-ranking noble. Fuming, Helena threatens to report her to the head maid and have her shipped off to a bleak orphanage in the northeast. But the young girl just stares back coldly, thinking the servant clearly doesn't understand who she's dealing with. She recalls her lonely past, how she was always looked down on and never knew her own worth, a stark contrast to the determined girl she is now. Unfazed by the threats, she calmly pours herself a cup of tea, with the grace of a true noble. She braces herself, thinking this level of pain is nothing, as she prepares to execute her plan, the steaming tea reflected in her determined eye. Meanwhile, a group of maids, led by the head maid, walks down the hall as someone agrees, "Yes, absolutely." Helena smirks, thinking she's won. She'll just show the head maid the broken cup, and the low-ranking noble's daughter will be severely punished. Her cruel thoughts continue, sneering that while Miranda was lucky to live in the castle, a cold orphanage is where she truly belongs. The head maid arrives, looking sternly at the young girl, and stating that Helena reported her for breaking the princess's cup on purpose. Splash! In a shocking move, Miranda flings the hot tea onto her own face, crying out in pain. The head maid rushes over in alarm, demanding to know what happened. Helena is completely floored, realizing there wasn't any tea earlier and wondering if this was all a setup. As the other maids look on in shock, a bewildered Helena asks what's going on. Panicking, Helena denies everything and frantically blames Miranda, insisting she broke the cup and that's why she was called. She continues her desperate explanation, claiming the girl was just sulking at her moments before. But her excuses fall flat, and her mind goes completely blank in disbelief. The head maid shields the girl's face, thinking that no matter the truth, the princess's body double being scarred is all that matters. Helena stammers, utterly lost as she tries to process the head maid's reaction. The head maid lays out the grim political reality. Strauss kingdom law dictates certain standards for a royal bride. She explains that while accessories are one thing, a scar on the princess's double would be a major diplomatic incident, angering the foreign prince. Her thoughts spiral to the worst possible outcome war, and the horrifying possibility finally sinks in for a terrified Helena. With cold authority, the head maid orders the other servants to treat the girl's facial injuries immediately. And then, the final verdict. She turns to Helena and calmly tells her she's fired. The head maid concludes that they have no room for a maid who can't foresee the consequences of her actions, leaving Helena to crumble in despair. As Helena begs for another chance while being dragged away, Miranda watches with icy satisfaction from the arms of another maid. The narrator notes the head maid's ruthlessness, a sign of her absolute loyalty to the Imperial family. With her first obstacle removed, Miranda calmly enjoys a lavish tea party, savoring her victory. She recalls how, in her past life, the head maid often scolded her for her perceived shortcomings. She focuses on the ornate teacup, a symbol of the high society she now navigates with deadly precision. But she also remembers that the head maid was impressed by her ambition to build connections and even became her mentor. A spark of genius ignites in her eyes. If she can win the head maid over to her side this time, her grand revenge is almost guaranteed. Across the table, the real princess, Anastasia, claps her hands with sparkling eyes, exclaiming that Miranda is amazing. Caught off guard by the genuine praise, Miranda can only manage a slightly awkward laugh. She watches Anastasia eat, contemplating whether she should flex her own perfect manners or if it would be considered rude. More importantly, she realizes she needs to figure out who her allies and enemies are to secure her future. Anastasia, completely oblivious, happily offers Miranda a bite of her cake. Miranda is flustered by the simple act of kindness, stammering the princess's name. With a radiant smile, Anastasia declares that she wants to be friends with Lady Miranda. Miranda is completely stunned into silence, a reaction she never could have predicted. She reflects that her past lives of endless work and deception were so all-consuming that she forgot something fundamental. She forgot what it was like to just be a kid, to laugh and eat cake with a friend. With a gentle smile, she thanks Anastasia, deciding to savor this rare, peaceful moment. After their delightful tea party, the two girls walk through the gardens, and Anastasia eagerly suggests they do it again sometime. Miranda allows herself a moment of hope, thinking she might actually survive and have a good life this time, until a sudden gasp escapes her. Anastasia turns, asking if someone has arrived, as both girls stop in their tracks. Miranda's eye widens in absolute shock, a glimmer of recognition and horror dawning. Anastasia points to a young boy standing nearby, offering to introduce him to her new friend. It's him, a young Sir Rowan, holding a bouquet of roses, his innocent face a chilling reminder of betrayal. A wave of cold nostalgia hits Miranda. She never thought she'd see him again, the man who left her to die. His memories flash back to a young boy standing in a sunlit garden, a boy named Rowan. A young Anastasia scolds him for glaring, calling his angry face uncute. Miranda reflects that, from Rowan's perspective back then, his anger was probably justified. The story goes back further. The Kingdom of O'Fallon was at war with Strauss, and a treaty was proposed to avoid more bloodshed, but it came at a cost. To seal the deal, a political marriage was arranged, but the Emperor refused to send his beloved daughter, Anastasia, to the fearsome King of Strauss. The groom in question was a young, noble-looking Rowan, so a plan was hatched. A substitute would be sent, and Miranda, a perfect look-alike, was chosen to live near Rowan as a sacrificial pawn. She imagines how creepy it must have been for Anastasia to have a doppelganger suddenly appear in her life. In the memory, a young Miranda resolves to handle things peacefully and approaches Lord Rowan with a smile. But the young, white-haired Rowan coldly shuts her down, saying he has nothing to say to her. He twists the knife, dismissing her as a mere outsider. Her memories paint him as ruthless, capable of leaving someone to die without a second thought. She saw him as a cold-hearted knight, and she wasn't the only one watching him. As a lower-class girl in a hostile mansion, Miranda knew she had no allies and that her cries for help would go unanswered. Thwack! Suddenly, a bird smacks Rowan right in the face, making him yelp in surprise. He whirls around to find Anastasia, who furiously demands to know why he's treating an outsider so poorly. Rowan is left utterly speechless by her outburst. Seeing Anastasia defend her, Miranda bursts into tears. Rowan's anger immediately turns to shocked concern at the sight of her crying. She grabs his sleeve, telling him she knows he hates her, but is grateful for the life he's given her. Her tears continue to flow, a perfect performance of a damsel in distress. Completely flustered and blushing, Rowan has no idea how to react. He's frozen in confusion as Anastasia and another girl rush to comfort the victim. Miranda's plan was simple: use Anastasia's affection for Rowan against him. She relished the idea of making the memory focuses on a determined young Miranda facing a young, guarded Rowan. The three girls stand together, a united front against the bewildered boy. With a radiant smile, Miranda extends her hand, officially beginning their complicated relationship. Back in the present, two men seem to be having a serious discussion in a drawing room. A handshake seems to finalize an important agreement. The flashback continues. After Anastasia told her father everything, the doting emperor praised Miranda for becoming his daughter's friend. Enjoying a dessert, Miranda realizes this small victory is a massive step forward from her miserable past life. But she knows this is just the beginning. She has to face her fears or risk running away forever. In a memory, she stands trembling, her hands clenched in terror. A man in a uniform thanks her for the opportunity, and she forces out a polite response. Even though she's reliving this moment, she can't stop shaking. The phantom feeling of a blade cutting her neck comes rushing back, a memory soaked in blood. An attendant's voice calls for Lady Anastasia, and she numbly confirms her identity. The attendant announces a special guest, a visitor from the Kingdom of Strauss. Seated on a throne of red roses is a striking, dark-haired prince with piercing red eyes, His Highness Alua. The introduction hangs in the air as Prince Alua stares forward, his presence commanding the room. Miranda is formally presented to the imposing prince. Sweating bullets, she reminds herself to maintain her composure and act like the real Anastasia. As the prince moves with terrifying speed, she forces a smile and introduces herself, welcoming Prince Alua. He stands over her, his silence more intimidating than any words. Placing a hand over his heart, he formally accepts her greeting, stating he'll be in her care for the day. The two are left to sit together, under the watchful eyes of the adults. Awkward. Trying to break the tension, the prince mentions that he enjoys traveling. Miranda forces a smile, her mind screaming that this is a very, very bad situation. As a cup of tea is served, she politely excuses herself, trying to gather her wits. A young Anastasia cheerfully serves tea and snacks to the visiting Prince Alua. Whoops! In a moment of clumsiness, she trips and sends the tea flying. Her eyes widen in pure panic as she realizes her mistake. A group of maids rushes in, with one shouting that she'll clean up the mess. Anastasia's mind races. She's never made a mistake like this before and doesn't know what to do. Trembling with fear, she can't even breathe properly as the spilled tea stains the floor. A dark purple aura envelops her as she's consumed by a terror that has clung to her for years. Her thoughts are a desperate, silent plea for someone to help her. Suddenly, Prince Alua reaches down to help with the spill, his kindness catching her by surprise. She nervously agrees as he looks at her with a calm, steady gaze. The prince looks thoughtful, placing a hand over his heart. He leads her to a balcony overlooking a gorgeous, star-filled night sky. With a gentle smile, he comments on how beautiful the view is. Blushing, Anastasia asks him why he wanted to show her around the palace. He confirms he brought her here so she could apologize for the spill. He then surprises her with a beautiful bouquet of pink flowers. He explains they're a rare flower from his kingdom, apologizing that they got a little bent while he was hiding them. Acknowledging his country's fearsome reputation, he tells Anastasia he understands why she's scared of him. But with a sweet smile, she tells him not to assume he's forcing her. He tells her of the beautiful sights that can only be found in the Strauss kingdom. Her eyes sparkle, completely captivated by his words. He leans in and makes a solemn promise. If she comes to Strauss, he won't let her be miserable. Clutching the flowers to her chest, she blushes deeply, completely charmed. A radiant smile lights up her face, her heart clearly won over. The two stand together on the balcony, sharing a quiet, meaningful moment. As a carriage departs, his promise echoes, a vow to protect her from misery. Miranda reflects that this young prince is completely different from the tyrant she knew in her past life. The young Prince Alua looks on with a slightly bewildered expression. Miranda clutches the now wilted flowers, a thoughtful expression on her face. Riding in a carriage, she resolves to focus on building connections in her own kingdom for now. She wonders what she can accomplish in the 6 years she has before her scheduled execution. The scene shifts to a beautiful sunlit manor. Now in a simple green dress, Miranda sits at a desk, studying intently. She recalls that while her second life was nothing but boring education, it gave her the skills to have free time now. And thanks to that free time, she was able to meet Anastasia's half-brother, the next in line to the throne. She successfully forged a connection with the influential and handsome man. A close-up shows the charming face of the man who could secure her future. She recalls him as a hidden character who secretly supported Anastasia, though he's seen patting a young Miranda's head. Miranda daydreams, calling him her ultimate bias from the novel, and creating a fan page for him called Shayna. She fondly remembers that Shayna was the only one who truly worried about her in her past life, calling her flawless. Having connected with him at 16 last time, she's now determined to prove her worth to him much earlier. She vows to move forward without relying on Rowan, convinced he might just betray her all over again. Footsteps echo down the hall, signaling an arrival. Peeking around the corner, she excitedly thinks he's here and that she absolutely must get closer to Shayna. With a bright smile, she steps out to greet him, calling his name. Her eyes are full of determination, ready to execute her plan. But she stops dead, confused to see Shayna standing with a young blonde-haired boy. Her mind spins as she tries to figure out why on earth the two of them are together. The blonde boy looks at her and asks why Lord Rowan is joining them. But Shayna smoothly steps in, gesturing to the blonde boy and explaining Rowan's a shy one, before offering to explain himself. Miranda processes Shayna's explanation, her expression thoughtful and unreadable. The young, white-haired boy states that he won't be able to visit the mansion for a while. Miranda seems to recognize the name Knight Academy and asks Shayna just how long he'll be gone. Shayna thoughtfully explains that Rowan will spend 3 years as a student, and then another 3 years after that, a total of 6 years, he clarifies, with almost no chance for them to meet. The narrator reveals that in the original story, Rowan and Anastasia were separated when they were children. Before he left, Rowan proposed to Anastasia, promising to return for her. 6 years later, the two of them reunited, their childhood promise finally fulfilled. They even shared a deep bond, their love surviving the long years apart. But Miranda is confused, wondering why Shayna is telling this story to her, of all people. She now understands, thanking Shana for making the effort to come and bring Rowan along. But internally, she's still baffled as to why he'd do this for a fake version of the princess. Shayna explains that Rowan wanted to say his goodbyes to her in person. Since he was already meeting with her, he suggested they come together. A tiny chibi version of him popping up with the explanation. The two kids stand opposite each other, the air thick with unspoken tension. Miranda is completely flustered, blushing as she tries to understand what's happening. She recalls her previous life, where she was killed by Rowan and never had a chance to get close to him. She remembers watching from the sidelines as he spent time with the real Anastasia. A memory flashes of a younger Anastasia happily interacting with Rowan. A sly, knowing smile spreads across Miranda's face as a new plan forms. With a sweet, blushing expression, she calls out Rowan's name, ready to charm him. But his response is ice cold. He came to tell her that he'll never see her again. Her world shatters, her eyes glowing pink with pure shock and disbelief. She clenches her fist, remembering a tearful girl demanding to know what he meant, knowing her feelings. Rowan turns his back on her, declaring he's going to say what he needs to say now. With finality, he walks away, ordering her to never appear in front of him again. Shayna is stunned, yelling after him that that's not what he meant to say at all. He rushes to Miranda's side, apologizing profusely and promising to bring Rowan back immediately. Shayna bolts out the door, desperately calling Rowan's name. Miranda is left standing alone, her face completely hidden in shadow. Her mind spirals as she asks herself why she has to do such cruel things. She wonders if she did something wrong, or if a simple greeting was a mistake. She realizes he's just like the other nobles who tormented her, questioning if he's a terrible person after all. She grips her dress, a quiet realization dawning as she thinks, "Me too." Tears stream down her face as she finally admits to herself, "I hate you." As the story goes, Rowan never came back that day and began his life at the academy. And just like that, 6 years passed in the blink of an eye. An older Shayna sits at his desk, reviewing a document outlining a surprise attack against the Strauss kingdom. He smirks at Miranda, saying he knows she doesn't want to be married off to them, and he can't afford to lose an excellent aide like her. Miranda stands before him, a picture of grace, as he declares that their interests are perfectly aligned. With a confident smile, she thanks him for the compliment, her plan falling into place. The narrator explains that to avoid a future of betrayal and death, Miranda worked meticulously to build a strong relationship with Shauna. Shayna leans back in his chair, lost in thought as Miranda waits patiently. He admits that, while they have a truce with Strauss, he's always wanted to settle things with them for good. Standing decisively, he announces his intention to propose the plan to his father. He takes her hand, and she gives him a brilliant, trusting smile. This is it, she thinks with satisfaction. Her fate is finally about to change. Shayna agrees, but adds that this is also for Anastasia's sake. Miranda is completely blindsided, questioning what Anastasia has to do with this. He confirms it, telling her there's something he needs to consult her about. Miranda listens with a calm but unreadable expression. Shayna turns to her in the opulent room, asking if she's free tomorrow night. But he quickly changes his mind, smiling as he decides to save the conversation for another time. Suddenly, a cheerful voice calls out, "Brother!" Anastasia bursts in with a brilliant smile, excited to discuss tomorrow's party. Her smile vanishes as she spots Miranda, surprised to see her there. The three of them stand in the grand room, the air suddenly a bit awkward. Miranda offers a polite, subtle smile, her plan still in motion. With a graceful curtsy, she politely addresses Lord Shauna. Standing before the grand window, she entrusts a matter to him, asking him to take care of it. Miranda bows her head, her golden hair hiding her expression completely. As Miranda walks away with Shayna, a maid watches them with a suspicious, calculating look. The maid walks down the hall, resolving to propose her own plan to her father. She stands with a look of grim determination, a silent vow hanging in the air. A week has passed since her conversation with Shayna, and Miranda sits alone, reflecting. Lost in thought, she considers her next steps, surrounded by a vision of blooming flowers. A letter confirms that Anastasia has worked things out with her father, the Emperor. Miranda's eyes narrow with resolve. Her ultimate goal is revenge on the nobles, who made her life a living hell. She envisions a happy life with Shayna, determined not just to survive as a fake princess, but to find true peace. A dark memory of her past suffering surfaces. She knows avoiding execution is only the beginning. Clutching the letter, she steels herself, knowing she must plan for both her revenge and her escape. Her hit list flashes through her mind. Linya, Marquise Pavlov, and Damien. She remembers everyone who played a part in her torment, including her own parents who sold her. And at the top of the list is Rowan, the man who betrayed her not once, but twice. With a furious clench of her fist, she vows to repay all 20 years of her suffering twofold. But she deflates, realizing her current position as a fake princess and mere assistant makes things complicated. With a new plan forming, she decisively picks out a dress from her wardrobe. As a maid watches her from afar, Miranda decides there's no time like the present to make her move. Now dressed in a simple but elegant blue gown, she announces with a confident smile that she's stepping out. Her maid looks on, slightly flustered by her lady's sudden declaration. Miranda gives a serene smile, as if she doesn't have a care in the world. Her staff immediately starts laying down the law. She has to hide her face, take an escort, and be back by 4 p.m. sharp. She just smiles patiently, holding up the hooded cloak she intends to wear. Walking with her escort, she reflects that this isn't just about revenge, with servants always watching. She's a prisoner in her own home. With her face hidden, she steps into a waiting carriage, ready for her secret mission. As the carriage pulls away from the estate, she dreams of having her own place and the freedom that would come with it. She finds herself in a library for the first time in this life, surprised by how much she's enjoying it. Looking over pictures of charming houses, she smiles, finding it hard to pick just one for her future escape. An assistant mentions the Lakeside Inn, a place he recalls seeing with Anastasia 5 years ago. He adds that the inn has been off limits for a year, a fact that piques Miranda's interest. Wandering the supposedly peaceful town, she can't help but wonder why such a place would be restricted. She decides to investigate, telling her escort she needs to look something up.
Suddenly, a hand clamps over her mouth from behind, pulling her into the shadows.
Her eyes widen in shock as she is silenced, the world spinning around her. Her vision blurs as she struggles against her unseen attacker. A muffled grunt escapes her as she begins to lose consciousness. She collapses to the ground, her hands bound, her secret outing having gone terribly wrong. Waking up, the cold reality hits her with chilling certainty. She's been kidnapped. A horrifying memory surfaces of being abducted as a child, and she realizes history is repeating itself. She recalls shady nobles scheming and deduces this is a plot to start a war for profit. In the past, thugs were always hired as scapegoats for kidnapping attempts, but Miranda's escorts always stopped them. But this time is different. A flashback reveals she's been abducted by her own escort. The hooded kidnapper wonders if the plot changed because of a stronger relationship with someone named Shayna, while an unconscious blonde lies nearby. But the blonde girl is only feigning unconsciousness, thinking that this attempt will also end in failure. Swoosh! She reveals a hidden dagger, proving she's more than prepared for this. She reflects on 6 years of this in a past life, and 6 years in her current one, as she faces her captor. She's been threatened with kidnapping so many times, it's basically Tuesday for her. To prepare for living alone, she mastered self-defense, easily breaking free from her restraints. All she needs, she thinks with confidence, is a little bit of courage to get through this. As her kidnapper looms over her, she hoists a heavy wooden box, ready to strike. Thwack! She knocks him out cold, musing that if this were a fairy tale, she'd be waiting for a prince. With a confident smile, she proves she doesn't need a prince. She's her own hero. The sound of a rope being pulled tight fills the air. Standing over her now-bound captor, she declares he's officially on her revenge list for underestimating her. The kidnapper lies hogtied and unconscious on the floor. This damsel is definitely not in distress. After securing her prisoner, she notices a letter on the floor and stoops to investigate.
I cannot read that for you.
Her eyes widen in shock as she realizes what this means. Suddenly, a guard captain raises his hand and issues a command. The guards rush right past her, leaving her utterly confused. She's baffled, wondering why the guards are here and, more importantly, why they just called her Anastasia. It dawns on her, if she's mistaken for Anastasia, then the real princess must have been kidnapped too. She tries to correct the guards, desperate to tell them they have the wrong person, and send them to the real princess. She turns with a look of grim determination, ready to set the record straight, but she stops dead in her tracks, shocked to see who the guards are surrounding. A maid. Miranda recognizes Anastasia's maid, Shayna, as the guard captain accuses her of the kidnapping and promises she'll be punished. Shayna scoffs internally, thinking that selling royalty is far more profitable than serving them for pocket change. With a greedy smirk, she dreams of a life of leisure after she sells off Lady Anastasia. The guard captain calls her a scoundrel for betraying the princess's kindness and orders her taken to the dungeon. As the guards move in, Miranda watches intently, her mind racing. With a steely gaze, she focuses on the maid, knowing there's more to this story. A flashback shows the maid, Shayna, looking somber in a cold, dark place. The narration reveals that when they first met, Miranda was correctly identified, confirming the maid knows her true identity. Miranda raises a hand, halting the guards in their tracks. She calmly tells the guard captain to wait, taking control of the situation. Playing the part of a betrayed princess, Miranda feigns heartbreak over being betrayed by someone she trusted. The maid looks on, surprised by Miranda's intervention. Miranda approaches the maid, asking her to reveal what's really going on. Looking her dead in the eye, Miranda demands to know the maid's true intentions. The maid's thoughts address her as Lady Miranda, and Miranda's sharp intake of breath shows she's been caught. A close-up of Miranda's eye confirms it. The maid knows exactly who she is. The maid smirks, surprised at how perfectly Miranda mimics Anastasia's mannerisms, making it feel like the real princess is there. She's impressed that Miranda could perfect such an imitation over the last 6 years. Miranda's sharp, red eyes narrow as she listens to the maid's assessment. For 12 long years, across 2 different lives, Miranda has been forced to desperately imitate Anastasia. She reflects that it's not easy to constantly be reminded that she is, in fact, someone else. Miranda's expression hardens, her brief moment of reflection over. Dropping the act, Miranda authoritatively demands to know who ordered the maid to pull such a foolish stunt, but the maid looks up defiantly, claiming she did it all on her own. Miranda is completely blindsided by the confession, asking what she could possibly mean. A frantic maid makes a shocking request. She needs someone to impersonate Lady Anastasia for a while. Miranda, still in her cloak from the kidnapping, is completely bewildered by the proposition. The maid insists she can't explain everything, but says the answers lie inside Anastasia's closet. She begs Miranda to go along with the plan, just for now, for the real Anastasia's sake. Miranda weighs her options, thinking there's absolutely nothing in this deal for her. She admits her imitation skills are flawless, but the risk is just too high. A flash of her own death reminds her that getting caught means more than just a slap on the wrist. She decides to refuse. With her mind made up, her eyes glint with cold determination. A memory of a younger girl wanting to be her friend surfaces, but she dismisses it as sentimental nonsense. Turning her back on the desperate maid, Miranda makes a bold move. She's calling the knights. With a confident stride, she walks away, leaving the desperate plea behind her. The maid is left utterly speechless, her plan completely falling apart. But Miranda glances back with a cunning smile, revealing she has a plan of her own. Elsewhere, a soldier interrupts a shirtless Lord Rowan's training with an urgent report. An older, incredibly ripped Rowan looks up, his blonde hair damp with sweat. Looks like puberty hit him like a freight train. The soldier nervously clarifies that the incident was only an attempt. Rowan demands to know why he wasn't told sooner, but the soldier thought it wasn't a big deal. With a look of sheer resolve, Rowan declares he's going to see her immediately. It's revealed the kidnappers nabbed Miranda, the fake, but the whole country thinks it's Anastasia, putting a critical political marriage in jeopardy. The mastermind behind the swap, a madman, only did it to keep the real Anastasia close by, and now the kingdom of Strauss is waiting. While Rowan panics over his fiancée, the real pressure is on to find the actual princess before everything implodes. In a flashback, the maid reveals she was about to flee, but was convinced to impersonate Anastasia for one night. The key to understanding everything, she was told, was hidden inside Anastasia's closet. Now, playing the part of the princess, Miranda knows she has to uncover that secret. Until then, she steals herself at a grand dinner table. No one can discover she's just a stand-in. When a maid addresses her as Lady Anastasia, she forces a smile and plays along. The staff has prepared all of Anastasia's favorite foods, and Miranda thanks them while internally freaking out, trying to keep her poker face. As she eats, she's relieved they haven't noticed anything, musing that the real princess must have had it pretty good. Just as she's about to compliment the food, she notices something unsettling. The maids are standing like statues, their gazes fixed on her, creating a chilling atmosphere. A wave of dread washes over her. Something is seriously wrong here. Finally, alone in her room, Miranda breathes a sigh of relief. She admits that playing princess is absolutely exhausting. Now that she's alone, she quietly slips out of her room to investigate. Inside the massive closet, she discovers a single ornate red book hidden away a diary. She opens the book, ready to finally learn the truth.
The diary entries are horrifying, detailing constant abuse and unhealed bruises, while everyone just watched, leaving Miranda utterly stunned.
She reads on, learning Anastasia was the emperor's beloved daughter, a true royal. The diary poses a chilling question against an image of perfect roses. Who would dare harm her? Miranda's expression shifts to one of dawning horror. The question echoes as a dark image shows a blood stain on the hem of a dress. The princess was being hurt by someone close. The terrible truth hits her like a physical blow. Suddenly, a knock at the door and a voice calling for Lady Anastasia break the silence. Annoyed, Miranda dismisses them, saying she's about to rest. She steps onto a balcony, reflecting on the bitter irony of being called by a name that isn't hers. She turns to see who's arrived, her night about to get even more complicated. A handsome, white-haired man in a dazzling uniform stands before her. It's Rowan. He looks at her with an intense, unreadable expression. Surrounded by a cascade of blue roses, he says her name and reminds her it's been 6 long years. The fated reunion has finally happened, but he's standing in front of the wrong woman.
Playing her part perfectly, Miranda offers a gentle smile and says it's been a while.
Rowan cuts right to the chase, mentioning he heard she was kidnapped by her most trusted maid. Feigning sorrow, she looks away, thinking she still can't believe it happened, but her inner thoughts betray her calm facade. She hopes he won't notice she's a fake, but knows it's risky with Rowan. Suddenly, he pulls her into a tight embrace, leaving her completely stunned as she weakly asks his name. Her eyes are wide with shock as he holds her close. With a relieved smile, Rowan closes his eyes, whispering how glad he is that she's safe. He gently touches her shoulder, his touch surprisingly free of any malice. Pulling back slightly, he gives her a warm, genuine smile that could melt glaciers. Miranda is internally reeling. This guy is way too perfect, a literal, flawless prince. The irony is crushing. The man responsible for her death in a past life is now looking at her with such care. Desperate for an escape, she decides she needs to get back to her room and read the diary, but only manages a hesitant, His expression darkens as he asks a pointed question. Did she hear the other woman disappeared at the same time? The thinly veiled threat hangs in the air as he adds how glad he is the guard saved her, leaving Miranda speechless. As she processes the word endure, he warns that with news of the incident spreading, others might try to harm her. To protect her from this supposed danger, he announces he'll be staying the night. Dude, read the room. She doesn't hesitate, delivering a cold, simple rejection. Please leave. Rowan is completely taken aback by her response, stammering, "What?" Standing amidst a swirl of icy blue roses. She tells him bluntly that he's making her uncomfortable. She doubles down, demanding he leave immediately because his presence is unwelcome. Then, in a brilliant reversal, she angrily demands to know why he would speak so cruelly about Lady Miranda. With a powerful blue aura flaring around her, she challenges him to explain why he's been mocking her all this time. Rowan's face hardens as he issues a cryptic warning. Don't trust Miranda too much. A vision of a smiling, red-gowned Miranda appears as Rowan narrates that her friendly demeanor is a lie to hide her true intentions. As his voiceover calls Miranda a cunning woman, she stands her ground, maintaining her facade as the innocent Anastasia. She reflects on her past life as a body double, where her time was never truly her own. Constantly watched and isolated under the guise of protection, she was a prisoner in a gilded cage. His words about the real her leave her completely baffled, wondering what on earth he's talking about. The only explanation she can think of is that someone has been deliberately ruining her reputation. Deciding to end the conversation, she once again tells him to leave, leaving Rowan looking completely flustered. His shock is palpable as he struggles to comprehend her repeated dismissals. She turns away, landing a final blow. Miranda is a kidnapped victim, and she refuses to associate with anyone prejudiced against her. Defeated and heartbroken, Rowan finally relents, whispering that he understands. As he leaves, she stands rigidly, coldly, thinking that his pain is his own damn fault. Now alone in her room, Miranda sits with a diary, pondering the night's bizarre encounter. The diary confirms her suspicions. A bloodstain on a dress proves Anastasia was being bullied. A heartbreaking image shows a younger Anastasia reaching for her maid's hand as they fall into darkness. Miranda realizes the maid's desperate plan wasn't to escape, but to buy time for the real princess. But she still questions the method. Why resort to such a convoluted kidnapping plot? She remembers the maid's final instruction. The answer to everything is hidden in the closet with the diary. Flipping through the pages, she searches for the hint that will explain it all. The first entry is damning. Anastasia returned from Lady Linya's tea party with a bruise on her leg. The list of abusers grows. Visits to Lord Pavlov's mansion always ended in tears. And then, a chilling entry about Lord Damien coming to instruct her, accompanied by the image of a riding crop. Miranda is horrified. A montage of cruelty flashes by, showing the nobles tormenting a helpless Anastasia, who could only cry alone. Another entry details a day when Anastasia refused to leave her room at all. The maid writes that the princess would only cry, refusing to explain what was wrong. The diary reveals the maid's own confusion, as Anastasia had always confided in her before. Miranda realizes with dawning horror that besides the three nobles, there must be another person involved. But who? Snap! Her hand closes the book with sudden, decisive force. She's found her answer. The horrifying truth dawns on her. What if the final abuser is someone with more power than Anastasia herself? Meanwhile, Rowan sits alone in the dark, his expression a cold mask of determination. He recalls a distant memory, realizing this is the first time Anastasia has been angry with him since a fateful day in their childhood. Drenched in red light, he's filled with bitter regret, wishing that day had never happened.